Hi there, welcome to this session. In this session, I'll show you how to create login, logout and register pages using Python Flask. In the interest of time, I have already created the HTML templates that are required for this demo. We have a home page. In the home page, we'll have a message for the user once the user is logged in. We'll also have a logout button for the user. In login form, we'll have a username field, we'll have a password field, and we'll have a submit button. We'll also have a link for the user to sign up. In register page, we'll have a username field, we'll have a password field, and we'll have a submit button. We'll also have a link for the existing user to log in. So let's dive into the Python code. I've already created app.py file and imported the required libraries to save time. So we need Flask for creating application instance, and we need these for session management, and we need this Flask form to create a form class, because we're not using the HTML input tags to create the fields and the buttons. So we need this Flask form for that, and so these we also need these string field, password field, and submit field to create the form. So we'll see that in a moment. So let's create the Flask instance first, application instance, and let's add a secret key to this application using the WIS module. Let's create a login manager instance. Let's link this application to this login manager to manage our session. This is again, this is required because whenever a user attempts to access a login required using login required decorator, a login required view without being logged in, Flask login will flash a message and redirect them to the login, to this login view. And let's create a users variable to save the users. So we again typically in a production setup, we'll have we'll store the users in a database. So but here for the demo purpose, we're going to store it in a variable. So it'll be a list of JSON with the user details. So each JSON will have details for a specific user. Let's create a user ID sequence. Let's set it to 0 initially. So we will see the usage of this in a moment when we when we'll load a particular user in a session. So let's create a user class. So class user, and we need to inherit all the default methods from user mixin. Let's initialize so I'm passing JSON to this initialization method because we are going to save the user details in a JSON, as I just mentioned, right? We are going to save the user details here in the users variable list. So for that, we'll be passing the user details in the form of JSON. Self dot user JSON equal to user JSON. So we need to implement this method from user mixin class for the session manager. So in user JSON we will have a field called ID, which will be unique for each user that we create in the system, right? So we don't need to implement any other methods from the user mixin class. So we just need the get ID method. Since we are using the user, since we are going to store the users in a JSON format, so we need to implement this to so I mean we need to implement this to let the session manager know that whenever session manager tries to load a particular user, it needs a user ID. So we need to implement this get ID method to get the ID from our from this particular storage. Let's return the user ID. That's it. Now let's create the register form. So we'll have to inherit again the inherit this from the Flask form. So we'll have a username. This is going to be a string field, and password. This is going to be a password field, and submit. This is going to be a submit field, and we'll name this submit field as register. and we'll create similarly we'll create login form by inheriting Flask form, and in this login form we'll have username. This is going to be a string field, password, going to be a password field, and submit field, this is going to be of type submit field, and we'll name this as login. Now let's create the user loader for the session manager first. Login manager dot user loader, def load user ID, so we'll create a user JSON variable, we'll set it to none initially, and then for item in users. So for this particular user ID, we need to pass the we need to load that particular user, right? So we need to first get the user details from this users list. So for that we need to loop in, and then if item dot get ID equal to user ID, which is passed to this view, then users set the user JSON as item, and then return user from the user class, pass this JSON to load the user. That's it. And now let's create our routes for home, login and register pages. So let's first create the route for home page. App.route, I'll have home. This is going to be of methods get and let's define the view function for this. Return render template home.html, and we'll also add another route to it, we'll make sure that home page is accessible after the user is logged in. So we'll use this login required to make that happen. And let's define the logout route, app.route logout. So this is going to be methods get and let's define a view function. We'll name it logout, and in this logout we'll log out the user and return to and redirect to login page, URL for login. Yeah, and of course we need login required, because this only logged in users should be able to log out. So we have home page, home route defined, we have logout, and let's define the login route @app.route. Name this login methods. It's going to be get and post. Def login. So in this view function, so we'll have to create a form instance, login form instance, which we created here using the login class. So which here we inherited from Flask form, and we created a class with these fields, username, password and submit fields. So we are going to use this class to create a form instance, so that we can render this we can pass this form instance as a context to the login page. So we'll see that in a moment, how to pass it as a context. Let's create the, so we have the instance created, and we'll return render template, sorry, login.html. Okay, and here form equal to form. So this form is the form instance, and this form is a variable, is a context variable, which will have form details, which will be accessible from this login page. So here we are, as you can see, we are accessing form.username. So this form is nothing but this context, form context, that we are passing while rendering the template, login template. So initially all these values will be blank. Okay, and let's add the code for login submission. If form dot validate on submit, we need to get the user logged in user details from the storage, from the users list. So for that reason I'm setting, so we'll store that in the user JSON. For that reason I'm setting it to none initially, and again I'll for item I'll loop through the users list to get that particular user. If item dot get username equal to form dot username dot data. This is how you access the username that is passed to this view function from the form when the form is submitted. If it matches with any of the users that is already available here in the users list, then we're going to put that in a variable. And if user JSON, if the user is there, then user equal to user and user JSON. Pass that user details here to get the user, and login using that user instance. Yeah, and return to, once the user is successfully logged in, we need to return it, we need to redirect it to the home page. So for that, return redirect URL for home. That's it. So on submission this will happen, and initially it will be blank, so it'll show you a blank page with for the users to log in. Once the user provides the details and tries to log in, it will come here and check if that user is already there, and get that user details from the storage, and get the user instance from the user class that we have created using the user mixin, and then load that user for the login manager and redirect it to the home page after successfully logging in. Now let's define our last route, up dot route register and for this methods will be get post. Let's define a view function for it. Register. Now in this we'll create a instance of register form that we've already created, and on submission we'll have to so initially we'll return a blank page. For that we'll have to return a render template register.html, and form in context will be form, which will be a blank form initially, and on submission we'll have to add that user to our users list. So form, for that form, if form dot validate on submit, then users dot append. So we'll have to create create the user in the form of JSON. So let's create that JSON here. So we'll have ID field, which will have user ID sequence +1. So we'll increment it for every new user, and we'll have another field username, so which will have form dot username dot data, and we'll have password, which will have form dot password dot data. So we are not encrypting this password here. We're not applying any hashing technique here. We're just simply storing the password as is for this demo. And once the user is added to the storage users list here, in this case we'll have to return to redirect URL for login. So once the user is successfully registered, he would try to log in as a next step. So for that reason we are redirecting it to the login page. So that's it, and let's try to run our app and see. Name, I'll save it and let's run it. Oh, okay. So here we'll have to okay, this is wrong. This should be name instead of main. Sorry, by mistake, my bad. By mistake I added I put name there. So we have corrected it, and let's run it again. Let's copy the URL and go to the browser and hit login. So there you go. So we have a login page with a username and password and a login button. Okay, so here username is not username and password, labels are not visible. Let's correct this and reload our application. I think we can give a name here, so we'll give username, give password. Similarly for login form, let's give username, password, and close this and then run again. Save it and run again. Let's refresh this page and see whether we still don't see it. Okay, so okay, not sure why we don't see it. Let me check that. So this is not enough, it seems. So we will have to add a placeholder, render keyword placeholder username. Let's add this for password as well. So we'll make it password, and let's copy it. Username, password. Yeah. Let's run our app again. Let's go to the browser and refresh it. Yeah, there you go. So we have placeholders here. So now let's right now we don't have any users created in the system, and let's create the user using the register page. So I'll add John as username, password ABCD 1 register. So once it is added, it is redirected the user to the login page. Let's log in with that user which we just created. Yeah, there you go. So once the user is logged in, it is redirected to home page, and in home page we have a logout button and we have a message for the user. Let's log out and create another user. Register. Now user is added successfully, and then let's log in with that user. credentials. There you go. So that's it. We have successfully created a Flask application for login, logout, and home pages. Thank you for watching.